Harris with you. You're listening to and watching Go Harrison on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.7 FM in San Diego, and 99.5 in Central California. Well, history has shown that it's virtually impossible to enforce accountability and honesty from inside of the government. And our next guest, former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura, he happens to be a strong advocate for any source that's acting as a check on governmental integrity, and that would include WikiLeaks, which he considers heroic. He feels WikiLeaks is exposing our government officials for the frauds that he says they actually are. In his book, 63 Documents the Government Doesn't Want You to Read, he's hoping to shed new light on what politicians are not telling you and why it actually matters to all of us. The upshot, well, Governor Ventura is challenging unnecessary secrecy, and he asserts that government leaders will actually show greater ethical consideration in the future if we remove their masks today. Some of the content in the book, he looks at the CIA's top secret program to control human behavior. He talks about what the Department of Defense knows about our food supply, but it's keeping mum and why, of course, that matters. And a whole lot more. Let's get right into it. Governor Jesse Ventura, welcome to Harrison. And what is the mainstream reaction to your tell-all tome here?
I like to refer to my books as they're calling them on the internet now. They're alternative history books.
Well, and it's really true, because if we hunker down and actually study American history from scratch, two of my ancestors signed the Declaration of Independence. We came over in 1620, and, you know, we have documents in the family Bible, which is where you hid stuff because you knew nobody would read in there, about the drunken George Washington and brewing all the brandy to pay off people to vote for him. And this is not stuff we're taught. We're taught mythology. And what you do in your book is you bring forth really prickly and gritty facts, whether it's the origins of HIV or 9/11, the stuff that is really basic, that any culture would want to know to what degree was their government involved. And none of this stuff, or I should say all of this stuff, is conspicuously missing from the average guy's history books.
Yeah, totally. And it's been that way. It's to the point now where when I read the normal history books, I question, is this true or is this fabricated?
And so we don't really know, but you've done a lot of research on this, and I guess a lot of people, their first easy question would be, since, remember, this is a foreign object. Everything they're hearing and learning through here, they've never heard before, so they come from the place of, well, it just simply can't be true. But maybe you could share with us how you came along to many of these facts.
Well, Dick and I got to give him credit, Dick Russell is the real researcher. That's why I write with him. That's his strong point. He loves to do it, and I don't. And so we make a good team. He researches and finds the documents, and then, of course, turns them over to me. I read them and comment and write about them. And it works out pretty good that way. And we chose to do this book following American Conspiracies because we took so much grief from American conspiracies being called names like conspiracy theorists and all lumped in and this and that, when all we did was that book was write about conspiracies, and we simply took the conspiracy side and offered as much evidence as we could to support it. And in many cases, the conspiracy evidence is much better than the government's evidence in reality. Well, this book, we decided, let's do a book that they can't accuse us of anything for. Let's find actual government documents and print them and comment about them. And we actually started this project about 3 or 4 months before WikiLeaks happened. And of course, when WikiLeaks happened, we were ecstatic because it was giving us access to even more documents then.
Harrison with you. You're listening to Harrison on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.7 FM in San Diego, 99.5 in Central California. Of course, streaming live all over via Facebook, via Twitter, on Ustream as video. And we're talking to Governor Jesse Ventura, who forever has been on the side of the humans. Now, this sounds rather extraordinary because we imagine that all politicians are actually fighting for us, and quite clearly you can hear my bias. I happen to appreciate anybody who's willing to stand up and bear discomfort on behalf of the people he's actually representing. This is the basic tenets. This is, going back to Runnymede, with King James. This is the basic stuff where a man's home is his castle and it has a right to be protected. And what the governor has done here is put together a book and listed so many of these really large issue items that have never been before presented publicly, certainly not in a commercial atmosphere. And let's take a look at one of them. 9/11 Truth is a huge movement in the United States, but if you watched CNN, as I did with you, and the only time I think Pierce Morgan what's his name? Is that his name? Yeah. The only time he's ever grown a set of nuts was when you were on there as a guest, and he suddenly was defending the establishment thinking against what you were bringing forth as if he was actually threatened on CNN.
Well, I watched him twice to get his style, and he caught me off guard, and I'll state this because it was the first interview I'd done in probably 5 months. I'd been down in Mexico, and we pre-taped it a week earlier, and I was off my game a little, and he sideswiped me and got me a little because I didn't realize he would attack me like he did. Had I interviewed with him about 3 days later, he would have found me much more difficult.
Well, it's interesting because I was watching him the other night, and he had his tongue so far up the proboscis of Janet Jackson or anybody else that it seemed like a major love affair. But in this situation, quite clearly there was threat. And I guess that's really the take-home message, that your book does contain a reasonable amount of threat. Let's take the example of the American food supply and the FDA. This is something ubiquitously of interest to all Americans, which is what you eat ends up in your body, and it can trigger diseases or things of this nature. But we imagine that our magical Pop-Tarts, which they're now going to be putting RFID chips in so that the government can monitor the healthful intake of your food supply. Even your computer will read the RFID chip inside of the food, which then tells you how to cook it and what it does for you. Well, what a great way, what an Orwellian orgasm to follow you around 24/7 while you think all you're doing is eating a cornflake.
I can't say it any better than you are. I'm listening.
Well, what you need to understand, and again, this is an unsolicited compliment and absolutely an encomium, but you've given the rest of the people permission to open their minds, have scrutiny, and ask questions. And if that isn't just basic democracy, nothing is. Tommy Jefferson is doing backflips in his grave. Ben Franklin is pulling the lint out of the belly button from the whorehouse he ran in Philadelphia right now. All the founding daddies are having a great bacchanalia in celebration, and if I couldn't kiss your butt anymore, I mean, I would, but it's a phone line.
Well, I appreciate that. I truthfully love my country, and I'm on my website now. I'm selling what I hope will be my most famous quote, and it's, "I love my country, but not my government."
Harrison here with you. You're listening to and watching Harrison on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.7 in San Diego, 99.5 in Central California. We're talking to Jesse Ventura, former independent governor of Minnesota, also a former U.S. Navy SEAL, a professional wrestler, a movie actor, a visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School of Government, and the New York Times best-selling author of 5 different books. Currently the host and executive producer of True TV's Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura, and of course he maintains a full-on reputation as the ultimate nonpartisan truth seeker and has no qualms about questioning authority.
And that's the message I want to get out to people, is that if we're not vigilant in the use of our government and what goes on in it and control it, well, then the government is going to eat us up, which it's already doing. And the country that I grew up in is changing ever so drastically in front of my eyes to something I had no idea that it could ever evolve to.
Let's take an example, Jesse Ventura, of one of the big ticket items in your book that you're most proud of, something that you've revealed that maybe you've gotten the most blowback for.
Well, I think one of it, if you combine the book along with the television show, without a doubt, it's document 24 and 25, emergency detention camps and civilian inmate labor program.
Yeah, in which we have photographic evidence of this too. A variety of
it's in a bill.
Yeah,
and that FEMA is going to create 6 detention camps throughout the country. And my question was simply, for whom? What will qualify you to get in there?
Well, I guess whatever the declared naughtiness of the day is. Right now, you've been governor of a major state. I mean, Minnesota is critical when it comes to election time. It's critical in virtually every way. It's a very important and significant state. You've been involved in government at the highest levels. You know, governor is one short of virtually anything else at the highest levels.
Well, put it this way, it's third on the salute list to the military. It goes president, vice president, head of state. So I get 6 bells and 6 side boys in the Navy, and it puts you third on the salute list.
And as you being a former Navy SEAL, as you being a former governor, having seen it, what do you imagine, having had access to FEMA in ways that the citizen never has, what do you imagine these FEMA camps would be for?
Well, you know, that's the terrifying thing about it. They claim they're going to use them in case of national disasters to put people, but why do you need locks on the doors then? If it's a place for people to survive disaster areas, shouldn't it be fairly open so relatives can move in and out and maybe remove their relatives and take them home for a while until the situation gets better or what have you? You can understand to a certain extent we could use, but how do they know where to place these places, and are they putting them in the right place? Or do they know what disasters are going to happen beforehand? I'm not sure.
Precognition, as it were, or actually create the disaster so therefore you can treat it.
Well, remember, there's a new business out there now called disaster capitalism.
Yeah, that's right.
It's creating a disaster and then getting paid to clean it up. I believe that's what took place down in the Gulf.
Well, there's no question. Halliburton pulled in close to $1 billion off of that. We have all kinds of evidence. I was down there myself on multiple occasions interviewing fishermen who reported conspicuously that they hate being called British Petroleum, that BP was down there and you could see them in tents with big coolers and hard hats and air conditioning. And they would take a fisherman from Louisiana and have him drive in his boat all day to Mississippi in order to pull the oil out. By the time he arrived, it was too dark to do any work. So they would have all the fishermen go to opposite states where they didn't know the territory, they didn't know the water, they didn't know the reef, to do the work. The work never got done, and that way, but you could say they were all hard at work. It was all make-believe, and I think really that's kind of the subplot in your whole book, is that the man behind the curtain really is behind the curtain, and the plot of his play seems to be different from the plot of the public play.
Well, and it's a case of government being hypocrisy. They talk one thing, they tell us all these things, but when you look at the documentation of what's going on, it's the opposite.
Harrison,
I mean, one thing that troubles me, I'm going to be 60 this summer, and over half of my life, over 30 years, we've been at war. And this doesn't include World War II. It's wars in third world countries that I have yet to figure out what we've accomplished. And I go back to Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty, who told us that all the wars after World War II would be fought in third world countries, with the government, with the military not being given an objective of which they could achieve it and declare victory. Like right now, let's look immediately at 9/11 for a moment. Was that not the reason we went to war in Afghanistan and Iraq, was 9/11? That's what they told us. Well, now that they've told us they got the main perpetrator, can't we declare victory and immediately come home?
You know, it's a very good question. And as we look at the American embassy in Baghdad, Governor Ventura, we see now the largest embassy in the history of all humankind. 1.5 square miles housing 4 oil corporations. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but an international embassy has to be neutral territory. It has to be a safe haven. When that particular largest embassy in the world houses 4 oil corporations, what's the message you're really sending the people of Earth? And believe me, in Europe, if you read Der Spiegel, if you read Le Monde out of France, even the Daily Gleaner out of Jamaica, they write about this at length. They all know what's going on. Somehow here, we haven't got a clue. We still think that it's the invisible, Emmanuel Goldsteins from 1984, the terrorists under every bed.
Again, the other thing it says to you is this. They told us we were going to war over 9/11. Well, clearly that wasn't the reason, because we've now accomplished 9/11. So we didn't go to war over 9/11. We clearly went to war for another reason, because we still aren't going to come home. That's what it says to me as a veteran.
Yeah, there's clearly no movement. We could have closed Guantanamo. We could have done all the things that were promised, but quite clearly, as Eisenhower, a great Republican, so smartly put it, the military-industrial complex, is going to grow hair and legs, arms and teeth, such as we've never seen before.
And again, call me a pacifist, call me a peacenik if you want, but
peacenik.
I'm sick and tired of these wars, and I'm sick and tired of us paying for them on the credit card. People bitch about national health care. If we wouldn't have gone to these 2 wars, we'd have more than enough money so that everyone could go to the doctor if they needed to.
Harrison with you. We're talking to Governor Jesse Ventura. His new book is called 63 Documents the Government Doesn't Want You to Read. It is not only a written analysis of American history that hasn't been taught. Really, you might consider it radical history in the retelling, but it also is photographic evidence with scans of the actual Senate bills, the funding of certain programs. So it's proof positive as opposed to just a survey of what somebody imagines. It's really an extraordinary book, maybe a great companion to the sorts of works that Howard Zinn has done over the years from the perspective of the vanquished rather than the conqueror. There's always a second side to the story. It often could be the larger side to the story, and you and I have been, the man who owns the printing press writes the history book, right?
Oh yeah, and look what we get now. Our mainstream media, I guess I should thank them, because they keep me in business and they keep me very much employed. Because what stories do we get from them? We get Anna Nicole Smith, we get Charlie Sheen, and we get all this hoopla entertainment news. And that's what dominates the minds of America. But then I look at it and I understand why, when I love to go to this issue also, is that everybody in the United States that's drinking water that has fluoride in it, well, people need to understand that fluoride, I believe, is 90% of the ingredients in Prozac.
Yeah, part of it, and sodium fluoroacetate, now that you mention it, of course, is a common form of rat poison. And just a quick backstory, because this is so interesting, and your book, once again, invites people to go and check stuff out themselves and support this incredible piece of work. Back during World War II, when they were doing the Manhattan Project, Fat Man and Little Boy, they found that they were having troubles finding the right trigger to get the atoms to react in such a way that it would create the nuclear explosion. And they started using sodium fluoroacetate, which is the side effect of aluminum production, much as we coat our houses with or make beer cans out of. And the stuff was so volatile that it was erupting in New Jersey, where they were doing experiments, blowing down in the wind and scalding the hair off of cattle. So what the government did, or the War Department at the time, is they declared that the same stuff is good for the tooth. When applied to a human tooth, this kind of fluoride is really good, so they started dumping it into the municipal water supplies. And as of today, the government still offers block grants of about $100 grand, and they pay cities to dump this Class 8 toxin.
And you know where they learned it from, don't you?
I believe
who was first to do it?
I believe it was the Germans, wasn't it?
Yes, correct. I believe they were called Nazis. They were the first to do fluoride in the water. Now, my simple belief is this. They've told us about that we need fluoride in the water. Why do we need the government telling us how to brush our teeth and use mouthwash?
Yeah, and also one of the lessons that you show us in your book, 63 documents the government doesn't want you to know. Do you like the way I keep selling it?
Oh, yeah, you do a good job.
One of the things that you teach us in How Do We Learn How to Think, which is my favorite part of the whole thing, is when originally it was put in the water, when the government said we're putting it in the water for children's teeth, it wasn't for white children's teeth. It was for poor black children in the South who didn't have access to toothbrushes and toothpaste. Now, I don't see a huge, long track record in the 1950s of the government really caring about the teeth of little black children. This, again, is where you find what could possibly be real and what's obviously BS.
Yeah, very good. You know, it is hard to make that decision in the 50s that they would be so concerned over young black children. Well, why didn't they then just put it in one of the drinking fountains?
You mean the separate drinking fountains?
Yeah, like, you know, because you had fountains for black people and fountains for white people. Why would they not just put the fluoride in the black people's fountain?
Oh, they did, but it probably was a little different.
Oh.
At least
I don't know about it, so I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly the best plumbing available at the time. The new and shinier ones went to a new and shinier group, I think. Let's talk for a second, Governor Ventura, about your TV show, Conspiracy Theory, on True TV. This is an avalanche of ice water in the middle of a parched desert. You found a way to show us the most hideous crap that mankind can perform, and you deliver it in an entertaining fashion so that the average person can actually take the information and not just throw up all the time.
Thank you. I'm very proud of the show. I'm proud that the show actually made it on TV. When I initially came up with the idea and we came up with the concept and we thought we'd show these controversial conspiracies, and we ran up against the resistance that the government has given us in all directions. I told my crew at one point, cast and crew, I said, we're going to do these, but they're never going to air. In the 11th hour, something's going to happen, and it's not going to get on the air. And I'm pleasantly wrong, and I admit that. All 15 made it on TV. We've only had one of them, and that was the police state one that has since been banned, I guess. They've never given me an explanation as to why that one was pulled. No one's ever communicated to me what the problem was with that show. And that, of course, is the one with the FEMA camps. They're building around the country. They tell me now that we've been re-upped for another season. My son is back working, but they haven't had any contact with me, and my contract is up. And so I don't know if they plan on going ahead without me. And, of course, what also plays into this year is the fact of my lawsuit against the TSA and Homeland Security because I can't fly anywhere anymore, which is going to restrict my ability to do the show in the manner that we've done it in the past.
Give us the quick
I really don't know where it's at right now.
Give us the quick backstory on that, because not everyone is familiar. Like, well, wait a minute. You're the former governor of a major state. You're a former Navy SEAL. You know, you have operated and cooperated at the highest, most confidential levels. What? You can't fly?
Well, I can fly, but I'm disabled now. I have metal in my body, and because of the amount of metal in my body, like last summer, when they still had the metal detector and the wand, I would go through the metal detector and it would go off if I went through naked because the metal's inside me. So I was always subjected to the wand. Well, I didn't mind
nakedness
it so much.
and wands really draws quite a picture.
Well, I didn't mind it so much, but it started to grate on me as the summer went on, because every time I'd fly, I'd get angrier because I started to realize I was getting comfortable being searched. And I believe in a free society, you should never be comfortable being searched. If you live in a free society, it's very serious to me. And so then, of course, when fall came one time, they went to this enhanced stuff. And, of course, I went through the metal detector. It went off, and I was given the option to either be X-rayed or this extended hand personal search. I will not be X-rayed. They haven't proven to me it's safe. There's much controversy over it. You're not going to tell me that when I'm flying 4 times a week, going into an X-ray machine will be good for my health. They're not going to sell me on that. So I asked for the hand search, and the person kind of yelled it out, hand search, like I was really putting them out. And then I was proceeded to be sexually assaulted, in my opinion, by a male. I wasn't given a choice whether it would be a female or a male. I'm far more comfortable, and I'm not homophobic, but I'm far more comfortable when I'm being touched intimately to be touched that way by a female. Yet I'm not given that choice. I was so angry over it when I got home from the trip, and it was the last trip of the TV show. I immediately called my attorney, and I said, I want to sue the United States government because I cannot fly anymore. I can't go through this in good conscience anymore. I refuse to do it. And so it will stop me from being employed, I imagine. And so I then moved forward bringing a lawsuit against the Homeland Security and the TSA. Originally, I was going to sue them under the American Disabilities Act because they're supposed to accommodate your disability, not exploit it. Yeah. And mine is being exploited. But guess what? The American Disabilities Act doesn't apply to the government, the federal government.
Jesse Ventura, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on Harrison today, and have a lot of fun with this book. It is really a huge, vast body of water in a truly parched desert of information. So again, we thank you for coming on, and we'll look forward to catching up with you soon enough.